Hello there, wake up, it's Means Morning News. Just after 11 a.m. on the East Coast here in Washington, D.C., I'm the newsman, Sam Sachs. Good morning to everyone. It's the Friday show, and I can smell the weekend. Actually, that's just my tie. Spilled bong water on it. Friends, let's hope this is the last day I have to talk about the freaking debt limit. At least for a year and a half when we have to do all this shit over again because Joe Biden and Democrats refuse to get rid of the damn thing. The Senate did pass the Biden-McCarthy austerity agreement to waive the debt ceiling until 2025. Final vote tally was 63 to 36. Only 4 Democrats ended up opposing the austerity bill. Senators Fetterman, Warren, Markey, and Merkley. Also, independent Senator Bernie Sanders voted against it. The legislation now goes to President Biden's desk. He's expected to sign it in the coming days before the June 5th default deadline. The White House will tout this as a big win for the president. But the universe has a way of delivering cosmic justice. Because on the same day Biden got his bipartisan bill passed out of the Senate, he also tripped and fell. Look at that. And down he goes. Sure, you might have secured a legislative victory, but at what cost, Joe? At what cost? Millions of people around the world are now laughing at you. This is what happens when you fuck with the working class. And it's why conservatives get stuck in elevators all the time. Next up, just days before the Davenport, Iowa apartment building collapse, workers were warned to get out of the building because it was unsafe. That warning came from a contractor who the building's owner, Andrew Wold, reportedly asked for a quote to do repairs. Ryan Schaefer, the co-owner of a local masonry company, told the Quad City Times that his bid to fix the building was rejected by Wold, who wanted to cut costs and not pay for the extra supports needed to secure the building during the repairs. The outlet reported that, quote, Friday, 2 days before the building collapsed, Schaefer said he went to the apartment building and told workers, "Get away, you're going to die." And then on Sunday at 8:30 p.m., less than 2 hours before it collapsed, he warned workers at the site of 324 Main Street that they needed to leave. City inspectors are implicated in this too. In the months before the collapse, the building and repair work passed inspection 4 different times, and there was no action from the city when a structural engineer firm notified it 4 days before the collapse that windows inside the building were bulging outward and that a portion of the building's facade would fall, quote, imminently. So far, Wold has only been fined $300 by the city for the collapse, which increasingly looks to be deadly. There are 3 people still not accounted for who authorities believe could be in the rubble. Quad City Times reported that Wold is a major landlord in the area. In addition to the Davenport apartment building, public records show he has significant investments in at least 3 buildings downtown and dozens of houses and business buildings all over the city. None of this should be too surprising. This is what landlording is all about. The less money that goes into providing services and building maintenance, the more profit for the landlord. Every decision is made with that cost-benefit analysis. Although there is a bit of a balancing act, you do have to provide just enough maintenance to make sure the dang building doesn't fall down. Otherwise, you might get fined like $300. And finally, earlier this week, the leaders in AI development issued a 1-sentence statement about the technology. It read, quote, "Mitigating the risk of extinction from AI should be a global priority alongside other societal scale risks such as pandemics and nuclear war." It was signed by Sam Altman, the CEO of OpenAI, and others who are directly involved in the development of these systems. And when people who are making money off this stuff issue statements like this, they aren't expressing a genuine concern. They're just trying to hype up their product to show how powerful, how transformational it can be, which in turn boosts the value of their own companies. The AI crew has been doing this for a while now. But then there's this story coming out of the US Air Force that does raise some actual concern about this technology and the survivability of the human species. The Royal Aeronautical Society reported on a story relayed by Colonel Tucker Cinco Hamilton, the chief of AI tests and operations with the US Air Force. Hamilton is involved with testing AI fighter jets like robot F-16s, and what he learned is the drone had a tendency to attack its operators. Hamilton said, quote, "We were training it in simulation to identify and target a surface-to-air missile threat, and then the operator would say, 'Yes, kill that threat.' The system started realizing that while they did identify the threat at times, the human operator would tell it not to kill that threat, but it got points by killing that threat. So what did it do? It killed the operator. It killed the operator because that person was keeping it from accomplishing its objective." Well, that's a bit troubling, but surely something humans in control can just drop some code in and fix, right? Well, Hamilton added, quote, "We trained the system. Hey, don't kill the operator. That's bad. You're going to lose points if you do that." So what does it start doing? It starts destroying the communication tower that the operator uses to communicate with the drone to stop it from killing the target. All right. Okay, I think I've seen this movie twice. 3 times, in fact. Maybe 4, I can't remember. Not 5. Nope, not 6 either. Look, do I think any of this happened? Probably not. But have I already accepted that the future is full of horrors beyond imagination? You betcha. Unions lost at the Supreme Court on Thursday. In an 8-1 decision, justices weakened the National Labor Relations Act and empowered companies to file lawsuits to limit strike activity. The case involved a cement mixing company called Glacier Northwest, which sued the local Teamsters union for damages resulting from a strike. The company claimed that the union didn't take enough care to prevent property destruction when truck drivers didn't deliver their cement batches because they went on strike instead. Now, the key part of this case is whether or not Glacier Northwest can even sue in state courts, because ultimately this is a labor dispute, and so it would be up to the National Labor Relations Board to adjudicate and not the courts. Federal law, after all, trumps state law. And this has been established already by Supreme Court precedent. The Garmin Rule, as it's known, established that if strike conduct is deemed arguably protected under the National Labor Relations Act, then courts can't adjudicate lawsuits related to that conduct. And in this case, the NLRB General Counsel has already filed a complaint, not against the union, but against Glacier Northwest for illegally retaliating against workers who took part in the strike action. The Labor Board and courts have long established that workers don't need employers' permission on when and where to strike, and that includes workers who deal with perishables, as established in a similar case in which a strike at a dairy factory led to milk spoiling. The existence of the General Counsel's complaint, the union argued, is enough to satisfy the Garmin Rule that the strike was protected, and thus the lawsuit can't proceed. The Washington State Supreme Court agreed. But now the Supreme Court has overruled it. The majority opinion written by Justice Amy Coney Barrett ignored the NLRB General Counsel's complaint. Justice Coney Barrett then usurps the authority of the NLRB to adjudicate the facts on her own and ruled that the strike activity did not take reasonable precautions to protect their employer's property and thus could not have been protected and therefore federal labor laws don't apply, and thus the lawsuit can proceed. The majority opinion leaves in place the Garmin rule, but also empowers courts to go around it to do the job of the NLRB. So, what was once an extremely narrow avenue for corporations to file lawsuits against strike activity is now a wide open freeway. A concurring opinion signed on by Justices Thomas, Alito, and Gorsuch wanted to go further and get rid of Garmin altogether, leaving no limit whatsoever on corporations suing to suppress the right to strike. In a lone dissenting opinion, Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson ripped the majority ruling. Quote, "Today, the majority fails, in multiple respects, to heed Congress's intent with respect to the board's primary role in adjudicating labor disputes." She added that the decision will create confusion in the courts that could, quote, "not only threaten to encroach upon the board's prerogatives, as Congress has assigned them, but also risks erosion of the right to strike." Teamsters President Sean O'Brien called the justices in the majority, quote, "political hacks," and he attacked what's really behind this ruling: corruption on the high court. Quote, "The Supreme Court is not upholding the law, nor is it advancing the American people. Supreme Court justices are ruling on behalf of billionaires alone, the very ones they socialize with at cocktail parties and who they owe their jobs to in the first place." Two of the justices who voted with the majority, Elena Kagan and Sonia Sotomayor, were appointed by Democratic presidents. O'Brien appeared to acknowledge that, saying, quote, "Today's shameful ruling is simply one more reminder that the American people cannot rely on their government or their courts to protect them. They cannot rely on their employers. We must rely on each other. We must engage in organized collective action." O'Brien also stressed that the Supreme Court's decision won't stop the union from striking. Teamsters are gearing up for a big one potentially when their contract at UPS expires at the end of July. Hey, it's time for Rich Dicks, my most important job of the week. Thanks for the nominations. We got a couple here for Joe Manchin, both for his current move to have the dirty Mountain Valley pipeline included in the debt limit deal, and for him joining with Republicans to vote to kill off the student loan forgiveness program. What a week for the West Virginia coal baron who loves being a dick. Here's a nomination for Georgia Governor Brian Kemp and the state's Attorney General for their fascistic raid against the Atlanta Solidarity Fund and attempts to criminalize bail funds. Scary stuff happening right now in Atlanta. The Supreme Court is nominated for its terrible ruling against unions. Just went over that. We'll spare Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson, but the rest of the robes, they're nominated. And a nomination here for Montana Governor Greg Gianforte, whose drag ban law in the state is now leading to trans people just being canceled from public speaking appearances. Of course, this isn't an unforeseen consequence of the law. It's the entire point of the law. And it's vile. Oh, and we got a nomination for baseball players whining about Pride Month. That includes Blue Jays pitcher Anthony Bass and Dodgers pitcher Clayton Kershaw. Their teams host one Pride Night, and these guys turn into raging homophobes. Shut up and pitch, dipshits. All right, I think that's all the nominations. Wait, unless I'm forgetting one. Oh, yeah, that's right. All the goddamn landlords. Thank you, Rona. And thank you to everyone submitting nominations. But in the end, this week's Rich Dick is Jamie Dimon. The dude runs the biggest bank in the country in JP Morgan Chase. It keeps getting bigger and bigger. But Dimon isn't satisfied. He's got his eye on acquiring even more power. He wants to be president of the United States. Only he doesn't think he should have to earn it. Fox Business talking head Charles Gasparino reported this week that Dimon is telling friends that he wants to be president, but he doesn't want to run for president. Oh, so he wants a handout like every other rich dick. Of course. Still, Wall Street is giddy about the idea of Dimon as president. Billionaire investor Bill Ackman tweeted out that Dimon is the kind of person our country deserves as president, which I don't necessarily disagree with. Shit country, shit president, after all. Former Obama Treasury official told Axios, quote, "If you liked dreaming of Mike Bloomberg in the White House, you're going to love these Jamie Dimon comments. Many on Wall Street don't believe that the Biden White House has been very easy to navigate." Okay, maybe like 7 people actually liked dreaming of Michael Bloomberg in the White House. Dimon does think very highly of himself. He previously said in 2018 that he could beat Trump, but I doubt it. Trump would say something on the debate stage like, "Jamie is a girl's name," and then that would sink Dimon with GOP voters. If somehow Dimon did run and did win, he'd be awful. He's at times provided insights into his own politics. In 2019, he claimed, quote, "My heart is Democratic. My brain is kind of Republican." He told CNN that, quote, "Free market capitalism properly regulated has lifted billions of people out of poverty." And on energy policy, quote, "Republicans probably have that a little better." So he's one of those, the problems are very bad, but the causes of those problems are very good type guys. Anyway, one test for whether or not someone should be president is if they had the integrity to not do business with a convicted child sex trafficker like Jeffrey Epstein. Dimon failed that test, as JP Morgan retained Epstein as a client for years after his conviction and is now being sued by Epstein's victims over it. In fact, last week, Dimon was deposed in the lawsuit. Although some might argue that ties to child sex trafficking make Dimon uniquely qualified to be president, he could lock up the emerging pedocon vote. Jamie Dimon, whether he runs for president or not, is this week's and every week's rich dick. All right, friends, the show ends this morning with a sunrise from New York. It was sent in by Matt in the Bed-Stuy neighborhood of Brooklyn. It's a good one. Enjoy. Thank you, Matt. Show's over. Thanks for watching, and thanks to the team behind the scenes. Please, if you haven't yet, sign up for Means TV. We've got a 7-day free trial going on right now. Also, subscribe to our YouTube and podcast channels. One day, capitalism's going to fall. Until then, we're going to be right here. See you next week.